Good evening, folks. Thanks for joining us again tonight. Tonight we're going to be talking about Dr. Seuss books, their censorship recently, and we're going to be making some comparisons between those and some other media with some sensitive content involving sexualization of children. And with this Dr. Seuss topic, we're going to be talking about racism and censorship in media, and possibly drawing some parallels there between other precedents. So just be aware of those sorts of things as we move forward. Thanks.
Welcome to the Will and Dave Show.
Hey, Will.
Hey, Dave.
How's it going?
Good. Welcome to the table.
I don't see any food at the table, but I tell you what, I was upstairs just a few minutes ago, and your mother is making me a pie with peanut butter in it and cream cheese, and I am just happier than a pig in cream cheese pie.
It's a metaphor.
It is.
Speaking of though, you are a person who likes peanut butter. We made a peanut butter, not curry, but like a West African peanut butter dish, like a sauce, some chicken, and it was really good.
I like anything with peanut butter in it.
For me, who doesn't like peanut butter?
You're missing out in life.
I like it with chocolate.
How was your week?
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's tolerable. I ended up staying home a whole bunch. COVID is wonderful. I mean, the illness is wonderful. I didn't swear, so step in the right direction.
So before we get into the vid and everything, why don't we pay some bills?
Yeah, let's do that. I'll start with Kelly and Dottie Hardy, who, through their generous donation to the show, have provided this lovely microphone that you can't really see in front of me because I wore a dark shirt. But it's here, I promise. But yeah, through their generous donation, I was able to purchase this microphone to make myself sound that much more tolerable on the air. So thank you to them.
And Rafter G Land and Cattle Company, we thank them for being great friends of the show. And we have one more incredibly important sponsor.
Hi, I'm Susan. I think that in all the world, there's nothing quite like the coziness of a handmade quilt. So I'm on a mission to spread that love as far and wide as I can. If you're a quilt maker, I offer long arm quilting services, and I accept work from anywhere in North America. If you already know how to make quilts and you want to learn how to machine quilt them yourself, I have a number of classes and lots of tutorials available that can help you with that. And if you don't want to do any of those processes, you just want to go straight to having the quilt with no delay, I do have a number of fully completed quilts available for sale as well. So details on all of those things can be found on my website, www.stitchedbysusan.com. Well, I've got to get back to quilting, so I'm going to let you get back to the Will and Dave Show. Enjoy.
Ooh, that outro was smooth, baby.
That's what I'm thinking. Your mom's good at what she does, isn't she?
Yeah, she really is.
So yeah, one more, and I'm not sure if this is going to work, but we're going to try this one.
What are we trying?
It
hey.
worked.
Buy me a coffee. If you want to
support the show, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/Will and Dave Show. I couldn't get the Will and Dave Show, so it's just Will and Dave Show. And you can give us $5, and I will.
Yeah, for those.
I'll email it up to William, where it will equal about 3,892 Canadian dollars. And
yeehaw! I can buy a loaf of bread.
That's right.
But for those of you who don't know, Buy Me a Coffee is a simple one-time donation to help support the show. It's not a recurring subscription or anything like that. It's just a one-off. So if you love the show and want to support us, that is an easy way to do it.
William?
So we should get into the meat and potatoes of tonight.
Not yet. No.
Oh, not yet? Oh, you got
stuff.
Oh, okay, cool.
We have this
palate cleanser. Yes. So you could have just cut it off right in the middle there at Susan is the very best person, and it would still be a true statement.
It would. And your mother wants the recipe.
Oh, yeah. I'll talk to my wife and get that out to you. A wink.
And Brad Hedstrom says he'll give me $10, but we'll give Dave cash because he doesn't give his credit card online.
Fair enough.
There we go. And I'll send it up to you, and you'll have $6,892 Canadian, which will buy 2 loaves of bread.
Or a pound of beef.
There you go.
Single pound.
It has been an interesting week, William. I have been immersing myself. I sent you a video earlier this week by
Which
what's
one?
his name? Little guy,
Bill. What?
Bill Maher.
Oh yeah, Bill Maher. Maher.
And I
Maher, whatever his
texted
name
you
is.
and I said, when Bill Maher is becoming the voice of reason in the world, we're screwed. And
You know what? As a liberal, I agree.
And Bill Maher he's a card-carrying liberal. He's an atheist. He's as far left on a lot of issues as you can get.
Mm-hmm.
But even he, and hearing a few of the things that we're going to talk about today, is like, well, I won't repeat what he says because I want to keep the YouTube algorithm going. But, what the F?
What in the heck?
Yeah, what in the heck? Speaking of
what
that,
in golly gee whiz or gee willikers is going on here?
Yes. So years ago when I was your age, we used to talk about the C word. It had a whole nother connotation.
Cigarettes?
Now we say we can't use the C word on the air, and it has to do with a certain illness, or you lose room in the algorithm. Whole new meaning to C word.
We're not saying it for propriety, or not saying it for propriety's sake. We're doing it just to protect our own butts. It's all about the bottom line.
That's right. So we can remain high in the algorithms.
What a parallel to what we're going to talk about tonight.
Isn't it true? It's so conjoined. Is that the right word? It's this. If you say the wrong thing, you lose room in the Google algorithm. If you use words and that list is getting longer.
Yes.
So I'm going to get after Brad for Chelsea Gabbard.
Yeah.
It's Tulsi Gabbard, my good friend, Brad.
Tulsi. Way to go, number 2 fan, Brad. Jeez.
He keeps it up. He's going to be number 1 fan because I don't see Tim on.
Yeah, well, letting us down. Yeah.
I'm actually I'm going to hop off here for just a moment, and I'm going to text number 1 fan and tell him he's being shown up. So I'm going to throw you on the screen, Will, and you can do the intro.
Well, yeah. We've been bouncing around it and skirting around it, but we should probably give a little brief overview for those of you who are not initiated in the things that we talk about all week long. Recently, it was announced that I believe 6 Dr. Seuss books are going to be cut out of publication due to, I believe the term used was racial imagery or iconography or racially insensitive iconography within the books. So it wasn't necessarily verbal sentiment from the author as much as it was some of his drawings may have been characters that some people found offensive. So those 6 books have been pulled from printing, not from sale. Like they're still for sale. I believe many bookstores still sell them. They're
not
just not
on
being
eBay, they're not
printed. No, eBay's cleaning it off. Again, this now to throw back what we were discussing before I gave that little blurb. It's all about the bottom line. And hi, Tim. But it's all about the bottom line. eBay is not stopping selling it because, I mean, eBay would love to sell it because the books are going to be worth more money now because they're quote unquote exclusive. But they're doing it because it's easy PR. It's the cheapest PR they could possibly get.
Yeah.
By just not making their cut on the sale of that little tiny niche audience, they're going to get headlines about them not selling that book. Go eBay. Look at these guys go. Paragons of social justice and inclusivity. They don't care about that. They care about money and advertising.
Yes.
And I'm still on the fence as to whether or not the Seuss estate is more concerned about the money or the publicity. I mean, my cynical half says it's about the money. It's publicity.
Right.
But I don't think it's going to make them much money or even lose them much money. I think it's kind of going to end up relatively moot for them because none of the books that are getting taken out of print were like supremely popular books. They were more of the outliers. Half of them I had never even heard of before, and I've been reading Dr. Seuss my entire life.
Well, I tell you what, they're pretty popular right now.
Yeah. But
Amazon sales, they're in the, like all 6 of them are in the top 10 book sales on Amazon.
I don't let's just touch on that for a second. Why? Like, but what possesses you to hear that this children's book that you may never even have heard of before is suddenly a little bit more exclusive? And you're like, I gotta buy that right now. That's a piece of American history right there.
No, I think for a lot of them, I do think this. For a lot of them, it's an investment.
Yeah, that's true.
I think for a lot of them, they're hoping to make a quick buck.
That's very fair.
Buy it on Amazon for $300 and we'll sell it
Wait 10 years
on whatever is not eBay for $1,000. Like, I mean, I think that is for a few of them, I believe it gets a statement. You know, if they're not going to make it, I'm going to buy it and I'm going to force it up in sales. And I'm sure that's a part of it. But I think that for many people, it just is, I'm going to do it because I'm going to make some money on this sucker.
This is fair. This is fair.
So we have some memes. I'm gonna grab one and throw it up because
yes.
I have to tell a story though before we do. So we were searching for memes before the show started. We're talking offline and we're looking for memes and all of a sudden I'd hear a laugh on the other end and William would find some that we are not going to throw on the screen because 95% of the memes, if you search for Dr. Seuss memes, most of them are crude.
Cover your children's eyes.
Yeah, like it was horrible.
But
it
really,
was
though, Horton Hears a Whomst is one of my favorite things that I've read in a long time. Horton Hears a Whomst is.
Oh man!
But, if you want to throw that comment that just came up on the screen, that's a very, very, very good point.
I'm looking for
Susan's not only talented but smart too.
And yes, I will. That's a meme. Oh gosh, you're gonna make me think, Will. There.
There we go. But yes, that's why prohibition has never really worked well in the States.
Make something spread. Okay, here we go. This is the one we want.
Just like that, Dr. Seuss became racist.
Oh gosh. You could talk like Matthew McConaughey all day.
That wasn't Matthew McConaughey. That was Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump.
I can't tell if that's my problem that you got that wrong or your problem that you got that wrong.
Mine. I don't care.
This one I like. I like this.
And this one. And this is going to lead us into
some comparison.
Part of the segment tonight because it is a bit of the conversation.
Yeah. So before I get into cuties, before I touch on that, I want to touch on what made the like I don't even know exactly what the content was that is being deemed racist or racially insensitive, rather. No, in Dr. Seuss.
Oh,
I'm not even sure of the specifics of the content.
Right.
But I don't think that very many people, at least for like anecdotally on my side on the left,
right,
nobody here is calling Dr. Seuss racist necessarily. What they're saying is that there was racist iconography. So that doesn't mean that Dr. Seuss.
Whoa.
Just a sec.
What's that word?
I'm getting there. Iconography.
Iconography.
Yeah,
Shut up
here
with
for that.
the big
Yeah,
words.
I'm pretty sure that's how it's pronounced. I'll let someone smarter than me, check that.
Susan, you want to check that?
The long and short of it, though, is that just because something that he did in it, so the comparison that I used was Looney Tunes or any Disney animated show. A lot of Disney animated shows right now have a disclaimer before them.
Yes.
Basically stating that there is iconography, there are pictures, images in there, use smaller words for you, Dave, that are racially insensitive, but to allow for the full historical context of the cartoons, they have left them in, but they recognize that in more modern consideration, they're not socially acceptable. But so what that is that doesn't mean that the creators were necessarily inherently racist, but they made the comics, or in this case, Dr. Seuss wrote the books in a time where those caricatures were considered totally normal. There was nothing out of the ordinary.
Yes.
He may have been a very, very inclusive person. Like he may have been like a paragon of inclusivity. But,
which he wasn't, but
yeah,
that's beside the
in
point.
his time,
yes.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily stain Dr. Seuss as a person just because there was racially insensitive content in the books in terms of his drawings. If he was writing stuff, then that says something a little different. But
Right.
just the imagery doesn't change necessarily, I think, who he was. It just
Right.
means that some of the actual content wasn't it wasn't worth being produced anymore.
Right. So I want to go back a little bit further, actually.
Okay.
And I want to lay the groundwork for this conversation. As I called William up,
Mhm.
I was driving some kiddos around, and again, I had a break. I was sitting there on the side of the road, and I was scrolling through Facebook, and there's a meme that it said, in a world where Cardi B is able to sing about WAP, and it wins awards, and we turn around and a book by Dr. Seuss is no longer published.
Yeah.
And that was where this all began. It is a correlation in between our society, which looks at a song which it glorifies rampant sexuality. In the case of Cuties, it can be argued underage sexualities.
Yeah.
And
well,
it,
we'll
and it
get
says,
to that with Cuties.
And it says we can't have a Dr. Seuss book. Now, in all fairness, and we agree on this part of it, his books were not ever banned, and they were never canceled.
Mhm.
It was the estate of Dr. Seuss who removed them from the market.
Yeah.
Where you and I are differing is the reasons why. Is I am very firmly in the camp that they did it for financial reasons, is it looks really good in this culture.
Yeah, I'm kind of moot. I would like to think that it was for moral reasons, but I doubt it. I mean, I lean more towards what you're saying. They probably did it for good press.
And when we
but-
say that, it's an indication on the culture of today. Is it's okay to have a Cardi B song which is rampant sexuality, and it's not okay to have imagery
Yes and
which
no.
was written in the 60s and the 50s.
But it's not an apples to apples comparison though. Is the thing. For one, Cardi B's song does get censored. Every time it's played on the radio, it is heavily censored.
Yes, all you have to do though is have YouTube along with this show.
Well, yeah.
And it's no
Yeah.
longer censored. So I don't think the thing that gets censored is only because of FCC and whatever the
But
equivalent is in Canada.
The other thing is though, is the things that they are being, the things that you're comparing. So racial insensitivity and rampant sexuality. The rampant sexuality, at least on Cardi B's, in her case, is an expression of her sexuality through the song, right? Or her talking about expressing her sexuality, in her life, whatever that may be. It's her talking about an expression of hers. Yes, to a very large audience, but it is her talking about an expression of hers. Whereas in Dr. Seuss's, in the racially insensitive imagery, that's stuff that could offend an entire race, and they don't have a choice in its being out there. It's just out there.
Yeah, except I want you to look at it this way, because I'm not looking at the Cardi B song. I'm looking at the culture of the society, which will glorify one and not the other one, and say, this one we can't have in society.
But
and
it's
the other one, it actually wins awards.
Yeah.
Mind you, it won an award on MTV, and I was having this argument with somebody last week, and they said, MT what?
Like, well, MTV is
so
not
not
necessarily
a
a good, and they're not really a good judge of music. They're a good judge of popularity.
Right, except it's a culture in which it glorifies her song.
Yeah.
And we look at things which maybe not are, but may be viewed as culturally insensitive.
And this gets into a much bigger, like, meta picture, or like a macro picture of things, because
here we go with the big words again.
Macro, large; micro, small.
Meta.
Meta.
Is that a type of cheese? Oh, that's
feta.
Okay.
No, meta is when you have a comedian that critiques comedy as an industry. Yeah, thank you. He critiques comedy as an industry, making a meta commentary. So we get into like a large scale thing
Yes.
where society just seems to be on the large. This is me painting with a very
Yeah.
broad brush here.
Yes.
Seems to be leaning towards an area of more sexually liberated people, specifically women, and then leaning against this racially insensitive iconography. We just got a comment. I got to read it. Oh, I also love feta cheese, Brad.
I was going to put that up later. Would you spend your time on
Again.
mom's thing because it's really important? We'll worry
Okay,
about
yeah.
the feta cheese
Mom's-
afterwards.
Uh,
As mom has a
I
very
think-
valid point.
she does. I think this is weird because I have a hard time speaking clearly about that because pop music doesn't have a lot of influence over me and never really did. But I think it might over others, especially when we're talking like a younger demographic, like the 9 to 16-year-olds who are probably enjoying listening to WAP without fully understanding the actual lyrics of the song.
Hold on. No, Will, I don't think you can say that because the majority of people are consuming it on YouTube. And I
Yeah,
don't
that's what I mean.
think
Like
I don't
I'm
think
saying
you can
that
miss
the
the
prime-
connotation.
well, no, they get the connotation. They're getting the idea. I think the details of it. They're not where I can look at WAP and see it as a song about sexual liberation and expression. I think I don't think a 9 to a 16-year-old is necessarily going to get anything that deep out of it. They're just going to be like, "Ooh, sex."
Meta cheese, yummy.
Yeah, meta cheese, yummy. That's a big block of cheese, boy.
Isn't there an episode of West Wing, A Big Block of Cheese?
I think there
think there
is.
is.
Yeah, that sounds right. I can't remember what it's about.
And
but-
yes, I agree, Brad. Focus, Will. Focus. Focus.
But again, Brad's comment, we could cut the feta out and it would still be true.
Love cheese.
Yeah, I just love cheese.
Yes. Here's the thing, again, and I agree with your mom. I'm actually I'm going to put this on the screen again. Really, if we want to fix society, we should be looking at the things which actually make an impression on society. And I would argue that if you're a Cardi B, you make a larger
Impact than Dr. Seuss.
impact on society as a whole.
I would agree.
But what do we focus on? Is we focus on Dr. Seuss, or we focus on we focus on Lady A, who changed their name because it sounded good. You know who Lady A is?
No clue.
Lady Antebellum.
Oh,
Country group?
The country group. I couldn't care
Yes.
less. It's country.
Well, I know, except for the story is they changed their name because their name was Antebellum, which represents a culturally insensitive moment in history, and they were named after it. And they did that. You have to know it was a preemptive move.
Yeah.
You have the guy who got married on a plantation,
Ryan
Reynolds.
Reynolds and his wife, Blake Lively.
who years later, he apologized
Yeah.
for getting married at a plantation, which at the time was not an issue. But we got
Right.
married there, and that's not good. So we're going to apologize. And the only reason I know that is because I watched that segment by Bill Maher. And
I'd actually heard about the apology. This is the thing. Like I'd heard about the apologizing. I'd heard that before. I mean, I follow Ryan Reynolds on a lot of his social media because he's funny.
right,
Um,
he's good.
but yeah,
But he
the-
did that, and he did that for cultural reasons and not because he's sorry he got married on a plantation.
I don't know.
Come
Again,
on,
I don't
William.
know.
it
Ryan
was
Reynolds
an-
does not need the money.
No. If it was an issue for him, though, it would have been an issue 6 years ago or however long ago he got married.
He may not have known about it 6 years ago. This is where the waters of me siding. This is where my siding with you on a more cynical viewpoint of why they're doing these things starts to get a little bit murky. Because
I don't want to side with you. I want to argue, darn it.
I know. Well, no, this is where I'm differing from you.
Oh,
Is
okay.
because a person like Ryan Reynolds, I have a hard time believing that like an estate, a company, or anything like that,
Right.
or an eBay is going to make quick decisions about, all of a sudden they've been educated about the content of these books and they're going to change their ways on it. I don't buy that for a second. But someone like a person like Ryan Reynolds, I would buy that. I would buy that 6 years ago or whatever it was when he got married, he didn't realize it. He had no clue. And then someone may have come along. It may have been a family friend. It may have been his wife who learned about it and was like, maybe we shouldn't have done that. And he's like, oh wow, yeah, that was kind of not cool.
You really
He can
think
learn.
that they woke up and say, ooh, that was bad, instead of waking up and
No.
saying, ooh, I bet you people are going to get angry. So if I come out ahead of time, I won't have to worry
Maybe.
about them getting angry.
Or why not both? Maybe one day he read an article about something related to that and was like, oh wow, we got married on a plantation. That was kind of insensitive. And then the next day he woke up and was like, I just found out about that and made that connection. Maybe someone else will sometime down the road. I should probably get ahead of that. It could be both.
It could be both. I'll give you that part. Okay, let's move on to The Mandalorian.
Okay, what about it?
What's her name who stars The Mandalorian, who now has been fired from the show?
I
etc.
can't remember her name.
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about. Everybody else
UFC
does
fighter.
too.
Yeah. Gina Carano.
Yeah. Who I watched an interview with her. I can't remember. It might have been on your hero, Shapiro.
Tucker Carlson. Oh, no, Shapiro.
No, Shapiro. And
Oh, okay. Other hero.
yeah, it was a good article. And she comes across as a level-headed individual. But but the fact that you can get fired for having an opinion
Yeah.
is how far down that road do we really want to go?
I don't know.
Well, you need to have an opinion. That's why we have a YouTube show. You're supposed to have
I mean,
an
I
opinion.
guess.
I don't know why we do
you're-
this show. Let's just
when-
talk about stuff and agree.
When your job is heavily influenced by your social media, like when your job is connected to your social media and the fans that follow you and everything, then yeah, what you say and your opinions do reflect on your job and whether or not you get to keep it. Me,
Yes.
if like if I'm in my job, my blue collar day job, and I make a tweet about, whatever, I make a tweet, an insensitive tweet, fill in the blanks yourself, and my boss is like, hey Will, I checked your Twitter the other day and I saw that and I'm going to fire you. I mean, legally, I don't even know if he can do that. That's ridiculous because my Twitter has nothing to do with my job. My clients have no contact with my Twitter. My coworkers have no contact with my Twitter. Hell, I have no contact with my Twitter because I don't have one.
Yeah, we were going to talk about that after the show. How many posts are on the Will and Dave Twitter account
A
right
lot.
now, Will? Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We're-
So let's go down that road, though, Will. And so
Okay.
you were
No, let's
saying
do
that
that. Let's do
you
that.
don't even know if it's legal for you to get fired for a tweet. And yet you are defending the actions of the Disney Corporation, saying, well, if your job depends on social media, then maybe you could be held accountable. Well,
Yeah.
I don't think
If
it
I
was
in
a
my job
financial
was-
move on the part of Disney to say,
Well,
ooh,
Yeah.
we're going to lose a portion of our audience
Yeah.
over this, or we might. It's not even that we will. We might lose a portion of our audience.
Yeah.
So we're going to fire her.
Yeah.
And you're saying that you don't know if it's legal if it happens with your boss.
Because it's again, first off, I don't know the ins and outs of employment as an actor, if it's contract work, if it's, well, I mean, I think it's unionized, but
It is unionized.
at least to a
but
certain degree. So a lot of those factors into whether or not she could even legally be let go because of that. But it's a better comparison might be if I were to start spouting off stuff while I'm at a client's home fixing a problem,
yes.
and my boss heard about that, was like, Will, you can't be saying things like that to the client because that could reflect
Well,
badly on the company.
Yes,
And then
but
he
that's
might
not
got
what
fired.
she did. She never
But
made a
it's-
comment about The Mandalorian or
I
about
know.
Disney or about
I don't
the
have to
show.
comment about my job. I could go into someone's house while I'm fixing their plumbing and be like, ugh, those fucking those
Sorry,
dang
Google.
minorities. Sorry, Google. Those gosh darn minorities. They're just a blight on the system, by golly gee whiz. And that is worth firing me over
Is it?
if it reflects badly on the business. I mean, legally speaking, in my contract, technically, I'm not supposed to talk politics at work with my coworkers or
Right.
clients.
Right.
It's never really enforced. That's kind of like a moot
Right.
thing. And I think most businesses
But I want
would
to
feel
come
that
back
way.
to what you said initially is I don't even know if I
Right.
could be fired for a tweet.
Yeah, because it's not attached to my business. My clients aren't looking up my
But
Twitter.
she
If they
can
are, that's
be
creepy.
for something that had no bearing on the show. It
No,
didn't. It was not a
but
tweet. And this
but
is
it's
the
different.
thing.
I don't have fans of my work following me and basing their opinions on something I say when they're also consumers of the show. Like,
Okay, let's go a little bit further, and let's say the Will and Dave show hits the ratings and the rankings in YouTube, and we get 1 million followers,
mhm.
and you do have a voice. Then are you liable at your day job?
I wouldn't think so at
If
my
you
day
work
job.
at McDonald's and you have a voice now in the world and you are famous and yet you still work at McDonald's and you wake up and you tweet that, hey, I think that you name it.
The world would be a better place without all those minorities.
And McDonald's wakes up and says, ooh, you have a voice. And so therefore we have to fire you because we don't agree with your voice. And
That's really murky.
well, except apparently it's not for Disney.
I still think it's like murky for Disney. I see the reasoning, and you said I support it. I don't know if I support it, but I understand it, and I think it's tolerable.
Well, where does this go, Will?
I don't know.
So where does it end?
People being accountable for their actions. That's pretty rough.
But who gets to say that? And that is, at the end of the day, who gets to say that what you tweet is right or wrong? So her tweet was not a case of bad mouthing a race or of anything else.
No.
I mean,
Hers was comparing something to acts of Nazi.
Yes.
Acts done in Nazi Germany.
Yeah, and it was not a direct comparison. It was a pull.
It was a hot take.
Yes, and
Still,
to look at that and to say you're fireable for that, where does that end in society? And where do we look at some of the people who took after the old fearless leader with orange hair and said some nasty things about him on these same platforms,
Mm-hmm.
and that's okay.
I mean,
and this is why you have about half of the nation
in an uproar
on this side of the border in an uproar is they hammered him.
Yes, I mean
4 years vilely.
Yes.
And you turn around and you say innocuous things and you get fired. How far do you go down this road before we just realize it's never going to end?
I mean, it probably never will.
Well, I said the same thing
but
with Obama, mind you. I hated how the right just hollered at Obama. And I mean, there were so many nasty things said about Obama that in a way, it has come around full circle, but
sort of. There's a big distinction, especially between the comparison between Obama and Trump. Like, I think that I criticize many things that left-wing publications said about Trump because they didn't need to reach very nice. They didn't need to make any big stretches to find things to criticize him for. They didn't need to get mean. They didn't need to get nasty. He gave them plenty of fuel. And seeing as I've already buggered up the algorithm, I'm gonna bend it a little further here. When you have a presidential candidate that is on the record, like we got a recording of him saying "grab her by the pussy," I think he's opening himself up to a certain level of vitriol. He is spewing it, and he's got to be ready to take it back. Someone like Obama did not spew vitriol like that, and he's still got a fair amount of it regardless.
He did.
I think that's a very poor comparison in that regard. Of course he does.
I did that just for you, Brad.
Next one costs, man. That's your free sample.
Yeah, that's right. YouTube can be a sponsor of the show. But no chips. I can't have chips live on the air.
And I think I, it's weird because on one hand, I want to say, yes, every employer should have the right to fire somebody if they did something that they find morally egregious. On the other hand, if you make that into law where anyone can be fired for stating a moral opinion that you disagree with, that is a massive, gaping, gargantuan loophole through which you could fire literally anyone at any job for any reason ad nauseum.
Yes.
So it's moralistically, I'm down. Like I get it, and I'm
Moralistically.
moralist
Oh, here
okay.
you go. Moralistically.
It's
Making up words.
moralistically, um, but realistically, I don't think that's necessarily sustainable or even safe. I think it's an abusable position to be in, and that's
This is where
I'm
we
okay.
get to the Seuss and all of this, is that this whole idea of cancel culture, and it's where we're looking at just in a different lens. It's not sustainable, and the only reason that people are doing it is because the public. I don't even want to say it's pressure. I think it's
They're getting in while the getting's good.
yeah, yeah,
If you've got an axe to grind, if you can get a big enough social media following for it, you can make a change right now.
yeah,
It's kind of unprecedented. If
and it's
if
not a
if you
good
grind the
thing.
axe loud enough, it is, but it isn't. Like I've seen, like there are good things that have come from it. Like look at people like Harvey Weinstein. Without this sort of cultural shift, things like him getting properly ousted would never have happened. But at the same time, it's being stretched way too far, way too often. It's a power that we found that we have. Like we were like, oh wow, we have this. This is
Right.
something we can do now. Social media has a lot of weight in its swing, but now we're there's another big word for this. We've passed over trying to find fairness, and now we're looking for remuneration. We're looking for payback. Like we're trying to, or not we, but like I
I know
feel
what you
like
mean. Yeah.
society is trying to tip the scales in
Yes.
the other direction, and that's not
Yes.
fairness. That's just hitting them back, which isn't. I don't think that's right.
For those of
But
you who are interested, you should go and watch a few of the last episodes on YouTube from Bill Maher. As he does, he puts it in perspective. Which
whoa,
what?
Dave Schilling for a left wing media
Yeah, I
personality.
am. As I think he makes the point from a left perspective that we have to chill out. He's
Yeah,
actually he's calling for a chill the F out day
yeah. It's
for
it's
society.
there's a metaphor that I can't think of. I know there's a term, like there's a line that I should know or some like phrase, but
Right.
in essence, there this voracious appetite for purging of uncomfortable topics, that appetite is going to cause them to eat themselves. Like they're going to just devour themselves from the inside out if they keep pushing so hard and excessively on topics that are
I'm glad you're admitting that because I was going to say that next.
yeah, like on like the Dr. Seuss one, I'm more okay with because it wasn't a big topic. Like I'd never even heard about it on the radar, and I still don't really hear about it from most left wing outlets. It's mostly people who are upset that it happened, as opposed to
Mhm.
people that are absolutely upset with like. It seems like it was a very small group that were really pressuring the Seuss estate to make this change. From my
Well,
understanding, like I don't
well,
know.
I don't even know that they were pressured. Although I read afterwards, it's been in the works for a number of years.
Right.
There were articles in the 80s and in the 90s and 2000s about a few of these images, and
Right.
it came to a head, and they said, you know what? Why don't we do it as a financial move? It's absolutely a
Makes sense.
financial
Yeah.
move. And I read an article. I forwarded you the article that said actually, if financial, um, if that's all it takes, we'll take it. You know, if that's what it took
Yeah.
to make them do it, we'll take that. But
Yeah.
it isn't a good reason. And to look at history, I look at Disney and I look at the relegating a few of their movies into the adult section over some of the racial overtones.
Yeah.
And I think, man, oh man, man, you have to be careful how far we go down that road.
You won't see me praising Disney very often, but in that respect, I think that Disney does a pretty good job. You look at Well, both Disney and what's the company that produces Looney Tunes?
Warner
Metro
Brothers.
Goldwyn, Warner Brothers. They both do it quite well because there is in old Disney cartoons and in old Warner Brother cartoons and Looney Tunes, there is very egregious racial
Oh,
iconography and
absolutely. But let me ask you,
horrible.
William.
But just a second, let me
Okay, go ahead.
finish.
Okay, go
But
ahead.
what they have done, I think, is a much better way of handling it rather than purging the content and saying, nope, this is not okay. We're getting rid of it. We're washing our hands of it completely. They put disclaimers ahead of it saying, hey, some of the content in here is racially insensitive. We recognize that it is bad, but at the same time, we do not want to. It's like the animated version of all these statues down in the southern states that they get pulled down. It's one thing to worship the statue and think that it's a great thing, but it's another thing to try and get rid of them completely. This is where museums come into play, and these disclaimers are like the museums for these statues. It's good not to have them front and center without any kind of disclaimer, but we don't want to get rid of them because they are still a piece of history. These
Okay,
cartoons,
we're going to go down that road for a minute. But before we
long story
do,
short, I don't agree with the left pulling down all these statues and destroying them.
yes.
I agree with removing them from public spaces. I don't agree with destroying them.
Okay, I'm going to come back to that because I have some huge
Okay,
questions there. Except I want to come back to Looney Tunes and this whole idea that the racial overtones or undertones or the overt racism in some of the older Looney Tunes was absolutely, it was there. And
Yeah.
yet we turn around and we can give a 14-year-old or 15-year-old these video games like Grand Theft Auto.
They shouldn't have them, but yes, that's a
But
problem
they
with parents.
do, and we know they do.
Yeah, and
They
that's a
play
problem
them.
with parents because
Well,
you're not
yes,
allowed to
it's a
sell them to
problem with-
kids.
Well, they do. They just have to go to a pawn shop, and there's no. I mean, there's no reason not to.
I mean, that applies to everything.
Yes, it does. Except for, let's not even go that far. Let's go and look at Doom or Duke Nukem and these sorts of games, which are not age related, but the whole role of the game is to go and shoot and kill, maim, and destroy.
Hell yeah, brother.
So those are okay, even though they are morally questionable at best. And if you
Yes.
get into GTA,
Yes.
the whole concept, if I understand, I've only ever actually played it once, is to kill people and steal and do everything that you can do to break the
It's more like
law
you
and outrun the cops.
Can do that. It's more
Yes,
like you
but-
can do that as much as you're like pushed into doing it. But yeah.
Yes.
Your
So
point-
those
your point
are
is made.
okay and win awards. And we get angry at a little bit of racism. And it is racism. I'm not arguing it. In some of the old
There's a-
Disney movies that there is racism.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing that. I'm saying that in a correlation in society,
Yes. So
it's okay to be
there's two-
violent, but it's not okay to have some. Okay.
There's
let you
two
respond
things.
now.
The
Okay.
the first one is the first bit I mentioned there, that those are technically age restricted, at least as far as the companies and
Yes.
the retail sellers of them go. They are
Yes.
age restricted for a reason,
Yes.
and that is the reason.
They should
The
be.
other big
Yes.
one is, especially in regards to violence. Violence is, unless you are substantially neurodivergent, everyone knows that violence is bad. Like, we get it. That is something that society has fully grasped, is that violence or unnecessary violence, at least, is bad. Society has not fully grasped that racial profiling, racism, sexism, etc. are bad. There are
I'll give
people
you that.
who, yeah. So I think that's a very big difference between the two. Is
How
that
far down the road of entertainment idolizing violence is it going to have to be where violence is no longer bad?
I don't think it is. I think
think
that
so?
like, if you look at video games now relative to video games 20, 30 years ago,
Yeah.
they're more violent now by far than they ever
Absolutely.
were back then.
Absolutely.
But I think the general consensus among especially the younger generation,
Mhm.
I think we are more violence adverse than previous generations by a very large margin, at least like in real life. In our games, we enjoy a lot more violence,
Right,
but
so
in
we
our
take
real
it
lives,
out on the screen, not in real life.
yeah, I think that I don't think that anything
And
that
I'll
we're
give
getting
you
from
that.
games, yeah, I don't think anything that we're picking up from games is like, oh, violence isn't that bad.
But I
Shooting hookers isn't
also
awful.
but I also think that you can look at the youth today who would be watching those movies are are also more racially aware
They are
than they
more aware.
were in
This
the
is very true.
50s and the 40s and 30s when those were written.
Yeah, and I
So
think part of this is due to the cultural shift that we're seeing in what is acceptable and what isn't. It it's also it's bigger shift in the sense that there are more people that feel comfortable standing up and pointing out that certain things are bad. Like when a kid idolizes a movie star or something like that, and the movie star can now say, "Hey, racism bad," and not lose their job, more kids are going to hear about racism bad. So it's kind of a I don't not self fulfilling prophecy, but it's kind of like
again, the meme where Elmer Fudd is canceled. I guess he's been
a
warned against some of his movies, and GTA is not. You have to admit a little bit of a double standard there.
I
There's a warning on Elmer Fudd
yeah,
shooting a rabbit.
I didn't know about that, but okay,
Yeah,
I'll take your word for it.
I don't know about it either. It's a meme I read. I can't claim firsthand
Yeah,
knowledge.
I've never heard about there being a warning for Elmer
I'm
Fudd shooting a
reporting a
rabbit.
meme
I've
as
just heard
fact.
about yeah. I've
That's the
just
level of the Will and Dave show
that,
research. I
that's
saw a meme, so it must be
the
true.
journalistic integrity that we're pushing here.
So Bill Maher had a very he made a good point the other day.
Okay.
One of his rants, and I don't know if I sent you this one, but he's going on about slavery
Mm-hmm.
and the whole idea of cancel culture. And he posted a picture of Jesus and of God.
Right.
And he said, if you want to go after a person for racism and for slavery, you should look at these two people, as they apparently know everything and are in charge of everything and wrote the book on everything, and they never said one word against racism, and actually they condoned it. And if you read the writings of Jesus and of Paul and of the Old Testament, it was very much in favor of slaves, and they need to be honoring their owner, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, and this is, I'll give Bill Maher some credit. He poked a picture, or he poked a hole in something that he said, hey, if you're going to come after people, why don't you wait till Jesus ends up on earth and is here to do all the judging of all of us, and say, why didn't you say a word against this whole idea of humans owning humans? And he never said a word. And I thought it was a valid point, William.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be interested, and I might have a pastor on sometime and ask him that, as it's easy after the fact to look at scripture and say, well, he spoke about love and he spoke about caring and loving one another, but he also said slaves honor your owners and submit to your owners. And he never went to the owners and said, you need to get rid of your slaves and give them away.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing where we look at the teachings of Jesus and all the love and all these different things that he was a proponent of, and the caring for your neighbors and everything. But at the time, kind of at the time, slavery was just commonplace. It was normal. And now we have moved past that. And it's going to be interesting to see as time goes on. This is something that another friend of mine who is no longer a member of the church, was a member of the church, talk about a lot, is where is society going with that kind of just general acceptance now, or general tolerance of things. Right. Society is moving slowly but surely and evolving in whatever direction it's evolving in. And what is the norm 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago is no longer the norm now. The weird thing is that it seems to be just going faster a lot. Like what took thousands of years to change is now changing in a few years. Like you look at the rate that cancel culture has happened. Mm-hmm. Like, or look at a good example would be the LGBTQ plus community. How many years, like how long did it take just to get even tolerance of gay couples in society. And then all of a sudden we've gone from tolerance of gay couples and now we're into, I mean, there's a couple of states that are passing laws allowing polyamory, transgender policies and everything. Like, it's moving so quickly, which is both good and bad. That's a whole other topic to get into.
Yeah.
But just this cultural shift that historically has taken a really long time, with our ability to transfer and pass information as fast as we can now, it's on roids. Like, it's all coked up and ready to go.
Right.
And it's moving fast, and it's scary.
Yeah, and I think it's scary for old people more than young people.
I
do think
I
that.
would agree.
And I think it's one of the reasons why you look at those who voted for our current leader was younger than those who voted
By
for
far.
the last leader of our country.
Mhm.
And I think that that's a part of it, as us old farts are saying, whoa, let's put the brakes on some of this stuff.
Yeah, this is crazy. This is crazy fast.
Yeah. Well, I hate to cut this off because I think it's been good.
Yeah. We didn't even get into cuties. That's another topic now.
So I will
Sorry,
say,
guys, for the
Brad,
teaser.
as I read that, and as a believer and as a Christian, I call cop out. As we say these things that make no sense in society, we say it's all about eternity with Christ. Yes, it's about eternal with Christ. And yes, it's eternal. But that makes no noise in the audience. It doesn't make a wave there as they like, yeah, whatever. So I
Calling
agree
you out,
with you.
Brad.
It is about eternity with Christ, absolutely. Except in dealing with a secular audience, and you say that, and you say, yeah, he wasn't really worried about the racism because it's all about eternity. That's a bit of a cop out if you're not a believer. And I think for those of
Yes.
us who are
That's a-
believers, and we use that sort of language, we say, oh, it's all about eternity. They're like,
Yeah, it makes it's a valid point
Yes.
for you within the believer's circle. For people
Yes.
outside of it, there's a very big eye rolling happening.
yes.
Kind of a collective rolling of the eyes.
Except I do agree with this. And Freud, he did make a part of sexuality and into your identity.
Yes,
that's true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't want to speak too much on Freud because currently within the psychological community, Freud's work is going through a bit of a not renaissance, the opposite of a renaissance. But that's
Yeah.
something that I am not qualified to talk on.
No, I think in a part of that area of science, it is in the middle of an upheaval. Is older ideas are morphing and changing, and I don't know if it's for good or bad. But William, next week we're going to lighten things up a little bit.
Hopefully,
Did you hear back from your sister?
I haven't. No, we're still working on that.
Okay.
I haven't heard back yet.
So next week we are going to be talking marriage because
Yeah.
one of the effects of the vid is marriages are taking a hammering. It's the highest rate of divorce in history. It's the highest rate of violence in marriages in history. And so we're going to have a
Certainly.
happy topic
Well, yeah.
about
We're
marriages.
certainly going to
which
be
have
talking
lasted.
with sorry.
Yes.
We're going to have an older couple on that have been married for a very long time. And if the
61
stars
years.
align,
Yeah.
if the stars align, we're also going to have a younger couple who haven't been married for so long. And we're going to compare notes between them and us.
Yeah.
Which, on that note, you who are listening, we're putting these feelers out on the rest of the internet to try and find some good questions for these couples. But
Yes.
if you, the listeners, have any questions that you would like us to ask these couples about marriage, please send them to us on the website, on our Facebook, on our Twitter, on our YouTube comments. Doesn't matter where. Just let us know because we love to hear about it. And we would love to pass those questions on.
You can email us. I'm making it bigger.
info@thewillanddaveshow.com.
I'm not a fan of the colors, but that's what it's going to be for now. So if
What it
you
is.
have anything you would like to ask our guests next week, we would love to get some other input because I think it's important. I think that relationships are huge right now. I think in the world we live in. And And so next week will be a celebration of long marriages and new marriages.
Yeah.
So on
Right.
that note, we didn't argue as much as I thought we would, Will. Doggone it.
It seems to be a running theme. It's almost like it's what we were gunning for, sort of,
Oh,
in a weird way. We
So
got a little bit more heated this time. We got a little fiery.
So I'm reading a book about how to make $1 million in a year, and it's one of those books I try to populate my shelves with every now and then. And one of the things he did is he said you need to find an audience.
Mhm.
And I think we know who the audience is that we want. We just have to find them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here's my ask for Tim and Brad. Share the Will and Dave show.
Yeah. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything. Don't need a credit card.
Well, it'll cost them $5 on Buy Me a Coffee or $10 cash.
Well,
Brad.
but they can share it for free.
They can share it for free, yes.
Tell your friends.
Yeah.
Get more people in here.
It's really easy. At www.thewillanddaveshow.com, we're going to have every episode is there. Our new episodes are going to be featured on the homepage, so you don't even go outside of our website. It'll haul you right to YouTube to watch us.
Yep.
We're going to have a few more ideas on the blog is going to be coming this week. It's actually, I think it's there now, isn't it?
The first post is up. I haven't made much of a stir about it, but the first post is up there for those of you who want to check it out.
I will be live on Facebook this week. I'm going to be doing a live. I'm not sure what it's going to be about, but it might be a rant, it might not. I'm not sure. But
Just happy fun times with Dave.
happy fun times with Dave.
See, that's the official segments now. Happy fun times with Dave.
I don't think so. I'm too old and grumpy. But Will, thanks for showing up. I know it's late out in Ontario, yo.
Sleeps for the dead. Or I'll sleep when I'm dead, whatever.
You have any words of wisdom for our fearless followers?
Stay safe and don't die.